it is sequences and series. We've talked about sequences. Now we're going to get into series. A series is the sum of the terms in a sequence. What does the word sum mean? Addition. So we're adding up the numbers or the terms in a sequence. As a reminder, a sequence is just a list of numbers that follow a pattern. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, what's my pattern? Adding 1. And so now, as a series, I would write that 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. So a series, you add up the terms in a sequence. And what do I get when I add those? 10. Good. That's a finite sequence because it stops at 4. An infinite sequence. What would I get if I just keep adding 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6? I would get infinity, yeah. So if you have a sequence that goes on forever, you really can't find the sum. Like, it would just be infinity. So that's where these, what we call partial sums, partial sums come into play. I will tell you how many terms you're going to add. So you might see this notation, a capital S with a subscript. In general, we're just going to use N. So this means the sum of the first N terms. So whatever number is there in the N spot, that's how many terms we're adding together. A lowercase a means just one specific number in the list. The S means the sum. So you have to pay attention. If I have A7 and S7, this notation means what is the 7th number in the list. This one means what do I get if I add the first 7 numbers. Two different things. So you got to be paying attention. So here I have the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And it says find S9. That means the sum of the first 9 terms. Now I only have the first 5, but I can see a pattern and continue that till I get the first 9 numbers. Like 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9. And you get 45. What is the 9th term in this sequence? 9. Number 2, 4, 7, 13, 25, 49. Find S4, the sum of the first 4 terms. So 4 plus 7 plus 13 plus 25. This sequence continues forever, but I'm only adding up the first 4 numbers. And what do I get? 49. Okay. Try numbers 3 and 4. What's the pattern in number 3? Mm-hmm. Do you notice anything special about the numbers that are there? No, they're not. What you're adding is odd, but what's special about those specific numbers?
They're square.
They're perfect squares. That's 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, 5 times 5. But also the pattern, what they're adding every time. This is plus 3, plus 5, plus 7, plus 9. So the next term we would add 11, but that would get us to 36, which happens to be the next perfect square, 6 times 6. So you would be adding 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and 36. And what do you get when you add all of those? 91. And then number 4, what's the pattern that we see here? The denominator goes up by 1. So this, just 1, is technically 1 over 1. So you have 1 over 1, 1 over 2, 1 over 3, and so on. Now, of course, that one is going to take longer to type in because you're having to type in fractions. But has anybody figured it out yet?
It can't be more than 2. It can't be 2, can it?
Yeah, it can be. What is it as a fraction? If you type these in as fractions, it would give you your answer as fractions. But math inner. 49 over 20. Yep. A good rule of thumb, if you have fractions as part of your question, give your answer as a fraction. If it's possible, which it would be. Okay. So this could be very aggravating if you had to do this like by hand and I asked for the sum of the first 38 numbers. That would take you a very long time. Okay. So we use this fancy symbol. And does anybody know what that symbol is? It is one of those up there. Yes, sigma. It is a Greek letter sigma that means sum. That's just what the math sigma means sum. And our calculator does all of this for us, but we have to tell the calculator what to do. So with sigma, there's going to be some blanks underneath it in your calculator. This tells us where we start. This is the starting term. In all of the 4 examples that I did, 1 through 4, I started with the first number. I started with term 1. Most of the time, you will put x equals or n equals 1 underneath. Because most of the time, when I say find the sum of the first 8 terms, you're going to start with term 1. And you're going to add up the second, the third, the fourth, until you get to the 8th. And so the top number is your ending term. So in this example, I would be adding the first 5 terms. Now, your calculator doesn't even know what these terms are, and you're not going to type in specific terms. What you're going to type in for your calculator is the explicit formula. So you tell your calculator what formula goes with the sequence, and then it will add up all of the terms. Now for these first couple of examples, I'm going to show you by hand what your calculator is doing. So here in number 5, I know that I'm starting with term 1, and I'm adding up through term 4. And then my formula is n minus 1. So we're going to plug in a 1 for n, a 2, a 3, and a 4. So if I plug in a 1, I'm finding my first term. That would be 1 minus 1, which is 0. My second term, n is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. My third term, for n equals 3, I'm going to plug in a 3. 3 minus 1 gives me 2. And then my fourth term, 4 minus 1, that gives me 3. So this sequence is 0, 1, 2, 3, and it would continue 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But I'm specifically finding the sum of these first 4. So I'm going to add 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3. And you get 6. So that's what your calculator is doing. Your calculator is doing this math, and it's going to give you 6.
So the starting term and the ending term isn't like what A1 is. You're saying like what term you're starting, like
yes.
What number term, and then what number term you're ending.
Yes. Yeah. And your calculator will plug in the numbers 1 through 4 to see, okay, well, what is the first term? What is the second term? So number 6, again, and I picked 1 through 4 just because 4 is not that many. So we're adding the first 4 terms. We're starting at term number 1, going up through term number 4, and then here's the formula. So my first term, n equals 1, means first term. N is your term number. So term number 1, I can do negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3. So the first number in my list is a negative 3. The second number in my list, negative 3 times 2, is negative 6. The third number in my list, negative 3 times 3, is negative 9. So this is the sequence: negative 3, negative 6, negative 9, negative 12, negative 15. And I'm specifically only adding the first 4 terms. So the negative 3, negative 6, negative 9, and negative 12. And what do I get when I add those? Negative 30. Good. I want you to do number 7. So, what is the first term of this sequence? What's the first? 17. So, if n equals 1, the first term is 17. What's the second term? 22. Third? 27. Fourth? 32. And what do you get when you add all those together? 98. So the sum of the first 4 terms is 98. Your calculator, it's really easy to type this in. 2 ways you can do it. One option is to do math 0. Another option is alpha no, and then the second option. So if I do math and scroll at 0, it says summation and it has the sigma. or if you hit alpha window number 2. Either one, it's going to put up sigma with a bunch of blanks, little boxes, and we're going to fill those in. When we're doing sequences and series, we use the letter N instead of X. So you can type that in. It's easier just to use an X. It doesn't matter which one you use in your calculator. This button right here beside of alpha will do an X. If you want to do an N, you have to hit alpha, and then you find the letter N, which is over here by the 7, beside of the 7. Either way, doesn't matter. So down here at number 8, I'm starting with term 1, and then you go up. I'm adding through the 8th term. So if I was doing this by hand, I would have to plug in a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then add all those together. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to type in this formula. Alpha y equals, we'll do my fraction. And then I'm going to hit enter, and you should get 648. You should never, ever, ever arrow outside of the parentheses that it gives you. So never type outside of that. Or delete out the parentheses. These could be negative, yeah. What, like, it takes the sum of what's left in the parentheses, and then whatever you've typed outside, it does that on. So like if you have a +5 outside, it would add 5 to the sum. It doesn't, it's not part of the formula. So number 9, going to type x equals 1 up through 5. And so I have this 4 minus n squared. Notice all of that is still inside of those parentheses right there. So that squared, I'm not going to arrow outside of these. If I put the squared outside over here, it would take the sum and then it would square that answer. So you have to be careful. I'm going to type in new parentheses. 4 minus x, close those, squared. And you get 15. Do number 10. What did you all get? 61, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd work.